So, petting a horse and how we go about petting a horse is really something that I think says a lot about a person's understanding of horses, opinion of horses, and opinion of work. The way that we touch a horse has an enormous impact on their well being, on their response, on their feelings, and how they relate to us. So, personally, I think that petting a horse is an extremely important thing to go about with great care and tact. And if you think about how a lot of us interact with horses, we want to show them affection, we want to show them care. And what we end up doing very often is we go up to the fence line or a group of horses, we start petting them in a way that makes us feel good. And once things start to get a little pushy or a little obnoxious or a little messy, we leave. So we said, I've had enough. I've given you all the treats I have. You guys are starting to get pushy. You guys are starting to get messy. Now I'm going to get out of here. So what that says in that type of scenario really is that I'm petting you for my enjoyment. And once things are a mess, I'm out of here. And it's not really conducive to building a great partnership, in my opinion. So petting to me is an extension of everything else that I do in my work. Everything that I want the horse to know is that we're a partnership. I'm here to listen to your needs. I'm here to help guide you. I'm here to help soften you. And the way that I pet is going to be in accordance to what feels good to you and in accordance to what you need. So a pet to me is just another cue. So when I reach up to this horse, I'm going to put my hand in the middle of his forehead, and it means soften and relax. That is a cue. It's just like anything else that I would do when I pick up my rein. It means soften and relax. When I put my leg on, it means soften and go forward. Nothing should ever mean avoid, push, check out, and any of the various things that you frequently see happening with a horse when they're being petted is what you hope to have in your riding. So petting is really just an extension of riding. When I pet my horse, I want them to soften, to get centered, to not push, and to relax. So the way that I pet them is going to be paramount to that meaning. And what you see a lot of people do is when they want to show their good feelings for a horse, they stand directly in front of them, they play with their lips. I try not to show what you don't want that often in videos, but I just want to show you how immediately that got his lips to working. And if he's already a nibbly, pushy horse, it's not the ideal way to touch him. So I'm going to pet him in a way that's calming. I'm going to pet him in a way that centers him. I'm going to pet him in a way that straightens him, and I'm going to pet him in a way that lets him know that I feel good about him and I want him to feel good about me. So one thing that I often ask my students when they're petting is the petting for you or is it for them? When you're petting the horse, it's for the horse. It should be for the horse. And it should be meaningful to the horse and building your relationship on the ground and in the saddle in the same ways that a horse can understand. So what are some of the do's and don'ts of petting? Well, first the do's and the shoulds. Petting should make the horse softer. Petting should make the horse more relaxed. Petting should make the horse feel more connected to what you're doing. Petting should not make the horse more avoidant, more pushy, more agitated, or more crooked. And what that means is that if you're petting your horse in a way that creates a leaning posture, that's not conducive to good riding or a good partnership. If you're petting in a way that makes your horse avoid, so if I reach up to this horse's head and he turns away from me and I follow with my hand, that's not really teaching him to connect and soften. It's actually teaching him to avoid me. And it wouldn't be his fault, because if I'm approaching him in a way that doesn't work for him, that's what he needs to do. So when I go to pet a horse, I'm going to think in respect to what does the horse like and where do they like to be petted and how do they like that touch. And for most horses, they don't like to be pet quickly. They don't like to be pet with a slap. They don't like to be tickled, and they don't like anything that's agitating. So a good rule of thumb is that the stroke should be firm and smooth, but it really depends a lot on the horse. So I like to pet maybe on the neck, nice and smooth. And sometimes just a still touch is plenty. Again, it really depends on the horse. But if I was riding, I might reach down and stroke the neck. What I won't do is slap his neck, because again, that would be agitating. It would create tension in his body, or worse, it would create him checking out in order to tolerate that. When I go to touch his face, I'll try not to reach up in such a way that will create his head having to turn and avoid me. And I won't pet him when he's in avoidance mode. So when he's reaching for me, I'm gonna reach for him, and then I'm gonna wait for him to still and soften before maybe I do some nice strokes and then take my hand away. So you can hear he let out a nice deep breath, got a little softer. What I won't do is stand directly in front of him, scruffle his face, whack his chest. I really want there to be a mutual respect between us, and that really starts with my part and how am I handling this horse and what type of behavior and habits am I creating. So a lot of us get excited to show our good feelings for our horse, and that's great. I don't mean to tell you that you can't show your horse that you have affection for them and show them your affectionate feelings. But the way in which you go about showing those feelings is really meaningful to the horse. So I always prompt people to think, is the petting for you or for them? And by answering that question, we can really look at why we pet that way. And you know, I love to cuddle, I love to pet horses, I love to give them a scratch, I love to show my affection. But I have to make sure that it's in a way that is meaningful to the horse and helpful to their lives. So here's a kind of nervous young little filly. She tends to be high-headed, she tends to push and avoid at the same time, well, alternately. So when I pet her and how is also going to really affect her work. So I won't pet her to calm her down because she's not in the right frame of mind to receive the petting and have it mean something to her, of value anyway. And when I do pet her, it's going to be to help her settle into the center. So it's going to be nice and quiet, it's going to be soothing, it's going to be softening, and that's when I'm going to take my hand away. So I don't want to encourage her to push, and I don't want to encourage her to avoid, which she does both. So I'm going to bring her nose right into the center. Here I'm just waiting for her to soften. There we go. Almost. There we go. That's when I'm going to take my hand away. So that's going to be very meaningful for her in her life. That petting is not just something that happens to you that makes you agitated and pushy, but something that's meaningful, soothing, calming, and centering. Here's another example of when and how to reward. Here her focus is to her right. I'm just going to ask her to bring her focus to me. Then I bring my hand to the center of her nose and release for her being centered. She tends to be a little on the distractible side, so I ask her to reach for me, then I reach for her, and then we are together. And here's the little mini mule. She's afraid of human touch, so I reach for her, wait for her to soften, and that's when I take my hand away when she's nice and relaxed. And my hand is really still because it would be too much for her for it to move around just yet. So I'm teaching her that petting means relaxation, but she doesn't inherently know that. So my hand goes on her neck when she's nice and relaxed.